After nearly 40 years, is Akira still the most iconic anime film of all time? Its recent run on UK IMAX screens grossed £1 million, the most successful re-release of 2026. Why does this one film continue to resonate with audiences? It's a question worth asking, considering how popular and diverse the medium has become since Akira was first released in 1988. For example, Studio Ghibli is one of the most lauded animation houses in the world, generating millions in profit year on year. A handful, maybe more, of its films could rival Akira for the title of Best Anime Film ever. And in recent years, popular series like Chainsaw Man, Demon Slayer, and One Piece have crossed over into cinema as well. But for some reason, Akira remains the cultural touchstone, particularly with people who never watch anime. In this video, I want to explore Akira's impact. Why was it so successful in 1988? And why does it remain so in 2026? We'll look at the production of the film, its marketing, and its reception in both the mainstream media and the anime fandom. Part 1. Production. Before discussing the impact of Akira, we need to look at how the Japanese media landscape affected its production. The original manga of Akira was created by Katsuhiro Otomo and published in the seinen magazine, Young Magazine, starting in 1982. Seinen were already growing in popularity, but Otomo's highly detailed and cinematic art style helped drive a 50% increase in circulation. That success stood in stark contrast to the Japanese film industry during the 1970s and 80s. From a peak of over 1 billion tickets sold in 1958, cinema attendance fell by a staggering 87% over the next 30 years. The fall in attendance was a result of the massive increase in television ownership during the same time period, and it led to the closure of over 5,000 cinemas. Going into the 1980s then, the Japanese film industry was in a dire state. So how on earth did Akira, one of the most expensive animated films ever made, get the green light? Well, it helped that it was based on the #1 best-selling manga in Japan, with 500,000 copies sold per tankobon. That meant there was a pre-existing audience for a film version, which convinced a group of companies, including Toho and Bandai, that the production was worth investing in. These companies formed the Akira Committee. The committee model of funding predated the collapse of the film industry, but became more common afterwards. It allowed investors to reduce their exposure to financial loss, which was a major consideration in the risky environment for feature film production. But if the film was a hit, they stood to make huge profits off the back of distribution and merchandise. This was the deal that the Akira Committee made, each company providing a portion of the film's nearly 700 million yen budget. Crucially, their combined investment allowed Katsuhiro Otomo to create a film that stayed true to the spirit of his manga. As Otomo rather modestly stated, "I think if the original author puts in a little more effort, it might be a little better." What that meant in practice was an incredibly ambitious production, which was innovative on every technical level. Otomo employed 70 animators, including a larger number of key artists, or Genga. They worked from Otomo's highly detailed storyboards, which were a year in the making. That level of detail was maintained throughout production, through the creation of 7 different mouth types for character dialogue, compared to only 3 for television anime. These were matched to pre-recorded dialogue, something that had never been done in anime before. The result was a film that had over 150,000 cells of animation, the highest number for an anime up to that point in time, and a spectrum of 327 colours, another record, including 50 new colours. All of this was done under crunch conditions, with many of these animators clearly the worse for wear after long shifts. Otomo reflected on this after the film was released, believing that it was a creative failure. So each animator had way more work than they could do, so that meant they did a lot of overtime and had to make compromises in terms of animation quality. In addition, the studio had to outsource the animation abroad to reduce the costs, and they weren't very good. Yet audiences didn't seem to notice. On release, Akira was a box office hit, turning a profit by the end of 1988 and becoming a global sensation in the years after. The Akira Committee's investment paid off and continues to in 2026. One of the reasons for that is because, quite simply, Akira delivered the goods. It was an impressive visual achievement for its time and still outshines a lot of modern anime. But that's only part of the story. To fully understand why the film has endured, we have to look at its marketing and release strategy. Part 2. Marketing. The Japanese marketing campaign for Akira followed a tried and trusted formula. This was the era of the media mix, where big films were promoted across a range of other properties, including television, publishing, and music. Media mix had been popularised in the late 1970s by the Kadokawa conglomerate, where each aspect of the media mix generated publicity and profit for all the others, including the film. Akira had an advantage in this regard, since the manga was well established and lucrative. Closer to the release of the film, it was also backed by not one but two making-of documentaries. One of these, aired on Japanese television, offers a humorous look at production of the film. Through a series of comedy skits, viewers go behind the scenes at the Akira studio. There are also vox pops with members of the general public asking, "Who is Akira?" The other making of, known as the production report, was available to rent in video shops. It presents a more exhaustive look at the production of the film, charting each stage of the process and with more input from Otomo. Without a doubt, the most important piece of the marketing puzzle, however, were the film's posters. One of these was the iconic image of Kaneda walking towards his bike, which, combined with the impactful colours and font, is now considered one of the greatest posters in film history. This was released alongside several other theatrical posters, some of which kept the emphasis on Kaneda, others focusing on the film's apocalyptic imagery. Some were for exhibitor use only, but became highly collectible items afterwards. Others were released as limited editions, available to viewers who attended the film's opening night, which again shows how the media mix strategy was used to drive anticipation for the film. If we dig deeper into that strategy, we can see that publicity for Akira was multi-layered. Both the making-of specials, for example, positioned Akira as an established success through the popularity of the manga. We see that in the vox pops and in a later sequence of fans watching a ticketed screening of the teaser trailer. But the documentaries also spend a great deal of time explaining the film's innovative new techniques. So, on the one hand, Akira is portrayed as already being part of the media landscape. but on the other, it's a groundbreaking film without parallel in the rest of Japanese culture. The posters do something different. They don't really give much away about the film's storyline, which may have been unnecessary anyway, since a large number of viewers would have already read the manga. Instead, the stylized, highly kinetic artwork gives a strong impression of the film's exhilarating action sequences and sensory overload. More than anything, they aim to create an emotional connection with the potential viewer, which is, after all, one of the key aims of any great poster art. To sum up this strategy, it relied on social proof of Akira's popularity, publicity of its technical innovations, and an emotional appeal resting on slick visuals. A different approach was required in the West, where anime and manga were almost completely unknown. Akira and some other anime films from the same period were initially acquired by international VHS companies as product to meet demand for the new technology. Indeed, in the West, it was through video sales rather than theatrical exhibition that Akira made its impact. In the UK, after a limited run at the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, the film was released on VHS in 1991. This directly led to the creation of Manga Entertainment, which for over 25 years was one of the biggest Western distributors of anime on video. Throughout the 1990s, it marketed Akira and other anime as a forward-looking, even transgressive alternative to traditional children's animation. In this respect, Manga Entertainment was greatly aided by the increased popularity of Japanese video games during the same period, in particular the Sony PlayStation, which was consciously aimed at an older audience. The company frequently advertised its titles in video game magazines, even on occasion offering them as free gifts. In the UK then, the marketing strategy for Akira positioned it as a cult movie for a niche audience, rather than an adaptation of an already best-selling manga. It also leveraged a general interest in Japanese popular culture to create crossover appeal. We can see a similar strategy at work in the US. After a short run in American theatres in 1989, the film became a staple of home video. Crucially, it had received glowing reviews from some of the biggest film critics in the country, including Roger Ebert, who described it as
but entertaining in its own demented way, although not, like a lot of animated films are, not for children.
Such reviews contrasted Akira with Disney, a contrast that was frequently invoked in adverts for the VHS. This wasn't your daddy's animation. And so the film quickly achieved a certain level of prestige in the States, and was released as part of the Criterion Collection in 1992, only 3 years after its American theatrical release. In total, Akira sold over 260,000 copies on home video in the UK, US and Europe by 1993. In many ways, that commercial success laid the groundwork for the current global popularity of anime, not to mention Japanese pop culture in general. Akira is a complex piece of work. The success of its marketing, both in Japan and the West, was in distilling that complexity in a way that a potential audience could easily grasp. Much of the film's enduring impact is tied directly to those campaigns. But as time has gone on, and the field of anime has grown infinitely more crowded, can Akira still truly be described as the greatest anime of all time? Part 3: Reception. While Akira was a massive success in Japan, its reception in the West was on another level. Along with Blade Runner, the dystopian world of Neo-Tokyo was a frequent point of reference for cyberpunk films in the 1990s and 2000s. The iconic Akira slide became a cliche in Western animation, and there have been various attempts to remake the film in live action, none of which, thankfully, have come to fruition. All of which is to say that Akira has been adopted into the Western canon of great cinema. But beyond its acceptance in the cultural mainstream, Akira's legacy is surprisingly contested. For example, on my anime list, at the time of recording, the film sits at 122 on the list of top anime films. It's still, to be sure, a high ranking, given the list runs to nearly 3,000 places. But it's unlikely that your average Western critic could name another 122 anime films, never mind any to rival Akira. That's not so much a criticism of Akira as a reflection of the fact that the medium has expanded so massively and often below the radar of mainstream critics. Within that expansion, Akira represents but one subgenre. That also means that, in the anime fandom, the film is rarely treated with the reverence you see from European or American critics. There's still general agreement that Akira broke new ground for animation, but a common criticism among more hardcore fans of anime is that the screenplay is confused and unsatisfying. Perhaps that's unsurprising, given Otomo didn't finish the manga until 2 years after the anime was released. The narrative we see in the film is, by its very nature, unfinished. From my own perspective, Akira is one of my favourite films, but it works best as an action film. There's something inexpressibly thrilling about the combination of the kinetic animation and haunting soundtrack by Gaino Yamashiragumi, particularly in the opening night ride sequence. But it's much harder to follow the political machinations or obscure backstory surrounding Akira, which make up the middle act of the film. Over 6 volumes, those storylines could be laid out in full. But with only 120 minutes of screen time, that's much harder. But back in the 1990s and 2000s, that wider context around Akira simply wasn't there. Most viewers had no knowledge of the original manga, or anime as a medium at all. In that respect, the re-release of Akira in 2026 feels like a throwback to a time when all that we knew of Japanese culture were the few films that made it to the West on VHS. But of course, the success of Akira during the 1990s helped to transform that cultural landscape. So while many fans of anime may take it for granted now, without Akira, Japanese animation wouldn't be the £18 billion industry it is today. Akira may or may not be the greatest anime of all time, depending on which viewer you speak to. But its impact is unquestionable.